They say money doesn't buy happiness. I'd argue it at least buys you silence. The kind of silence you find under gold-tinted chandeliers, where crystal glasses clink and people who claim to love you wear designer smiles. That night was no different. My 34th birthday, apparently. My mother, Margaret, insisted on the rooftop venue, 5 figures for a 3-course menu, curated wine list, and views of the skyline she never once looked at. My stepmother, Diane, made sure the guest list was long enough to justify wearing her new Versace. I stepped out briefly to take a call, a real one, with Chloe, my financial advisor. Routine stuff. Projections, asset shifts, a reminder to sign a few documents. When I came back, I paused outside the frosted glass that separated the private dining area from the rest of the city. And that's when I heard it. She's got no idea. Still thinks we love having her around. Margaret's voice said, low, amused, and surgical. A chorus of laughter followed. Diane chimed in next, laughing. If Nathan knew we were only here for the money, he might actually grow a spine. Please, my cousin Patrick added. He funds our lifestyle and still thinks we're proud of him. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I just listened, took a breath. Let the words settle like embers in a quiet room. I've always had a rule, never react when you're being underestimated. People reveal everything when they believe you're blind. So I walked back in. Margaret looked up, radiant, false. Everything okay, darling? I nodded. Just a call from the office. Always working, she beamed, lifting her glass. That's why you're so successful. I smiled, quietly. No one noticed the edge in it. They were right about one thing. I am successful. What they didn't know, that success didn't come from trusting people like them. That was the last time they'd drink on my dime. The morning after the dinner, I brewed my coffee slower than usual. There was no rage, no theatrical fury. Only the kind of clarity that feels surgical, like snapping a string that had been pulling you in the wrong direction your entire life. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and pulled up Chloe's contact. Good morning, Mr. Carter, she greeted. Efficient. Always. I want all family members removed from every shared account, I said, not even bothering with pleasantries. She paused. That includes all of them. Freeze the cards. Redirect everything to personal authorization only. I'll sign whatever's necessary today. A longer silence this time. Chloe didn't ask for explanations. She didn't need them. By noon, the first call came in. Blocked it. Second call, unknown number. Diane's voice burst through the voicemail like a wasp in a bottle. Nathan, something's wrong with the cards. Call us. I didn't. Then the phone rang again. This time Margaret. Nathan, she snapped, skipping any attempt at niceties. Your stepmother's card got declined at La Belle Maison. Fix it. I put her on speaker. Stirred my espresso. That's strange, I said calmly. What are you playing at? She barked. Must be a technical issue, I replied, tone flat, indifferent. I'll look into it. I didn't. Instead, I watched the illusion crumble. Quietly, Margaret's social calendar began to shrink by the hour. Boutique appointments missed. Golf club access revoked. Their penthouse florist, who had been sending weekly arrangements since 2018, left a message. Miss Carter, your account appears to be inactive. And yet, I said nothing. Let them sweat. Let them make excuses to their circle, blame the banks, the economy, the new system. What I gave them wasn't just money, it was perception, status, stability. Without my name on their lifestyle, everything began to rot under the surface. The final blow came during the Entrepreneurs Gala, the one I'd sponsored every year, the one they bragged about attending as if they were honorees themselves. That night, Margaret arrived in her usual silk and stilettos. Diane clung to her side like an overdressed shadow. They were all smiles, until I stepped up to the stage. I want to thank those who stood by me because they believed in me, not because I could fund their lives. The room hushed. Margaret froze, glass still raised halfway to her lips. I let my gaze settle on her. Steady. Cool. I've learned that love, when conditional, isn't love at all. So, from today forward, I'm severing all financial ties with individuals who've mistaken my loyalty for leverage. It was subtle, sharp, enough for everyone in the room to do the math. The whispers began before I stepped down. By morning, my inbox was a war zone. Missed calls, voicemails, messages from numbers I hadn't saved in years. I ignored them. Instead, I went for a walk. The city felt lighter. Or maybe I did. By lunch, Chloe texted, FYI, The shared trust account triggered an alert. Mortgage unpaid. Default warning auto issued. I replied with a thumbs up emoji. That afternoon, Margaret showed up at my office. She didn't look poor, not yet, but her edges were fraying, hair stiff with too much spray, makeup hiding more than enhancing. She walked in like she still belonged here. I didn't offer her a seat. Nathan, she started, all of this is unnecessary. You think so? She blinked. Her smile faltered. You're overreacting. Whatever you think you heard, I was behind the glass, Margaret. I cut in. I heard it, every word. She paused, then tried the guilt angle. You're our son. No, I'm your source. Or I was. A beat. Then she tried to change tone, softer now. You've made your point. But people are talking. This is humiliating. Good. Her eyes widened. What do you want, Nathan? That was the first honest question she'd asked me in years. I answered without blinking. For you to feel what I felt for a decade, used, excluded, invisible. Margaret's hands clenched. You're going to regret this. I smiled faintly. You already do. She left without another word. 2 days later, the country club revoked their membership. 3 days later, Diane's luxury car was repossessed. Right from their building's valet stand. By the end of the week, an article circulated, heir to Carter legacy cuts ties with family over financial exploitation. Margaret's name was in the subheading. Diane's photo, grainy, furious, was plastered beside it. I didn't leak it, but I didn't stop it either. Their phones kept ringing. The invitations stopped coming. The people who used to clamor for their attention were now whispering behind their backs, forwarding memes, tagging headlines. They had made themselves look untouchable. Now, no one wanted to touch them. And I just kept working. Chloe sent over the revised estate plan that evening. Clean, controlled, cold. Just the way I needed it to be. The thing about reputation is, it's rented, not owned. My family never understood that. They built theirs like it was carved into stone, marble parties, glossy magazine mentions, handshakes at private clubs that smelled of old scotch and nepotism. But that kind of reputation, it only lasts as long as someone keeps paying the rent. Without me, the rent was overdue. And then the eviction came. It started with a whisper at a cocktail event I didn't even attend. A hedge fund manager, old family friend, casually mentioned over foie gras that Margaret Carter had been seen arguing with a bank manager loudly, publicly. By the end of the night, the story had morphed into something juicier. Margaret Carter, the matriarch of one of the city's most admired families, was broke. I wasn't surprised. But I wasn't finished either. That week, I received an invitation to a televised panel on emerging entrepreneurs, something I'd normally decline. But this time, I said yes. I had a message to deliver. Not to them, to everyone else. We filmed at a rooftop garden in Midtown. The host, polished and perky, fed me softballs at first. Growth, vision, strategy. I answered all of it with corporate precision. Then she smiled. And Nathan, there's been some public curiosity around your family. You recently made headlines after cutting ties. Would you care to comment? I sipped my water. I believe in boundaries, I said simply. When people exploit your success for their comfort, you owe them nothing. Not money, not explanations, not even silence. That was the quote. It went viral within the hour. By morning, the clip had over 2 million views. The comments section was flooded. This man just set a new standard for quiet revenge. He's the blueprint for cutting off toxic people with style. Boundaries blood. Margaret called me 5 times that day. I didn't answer. Instead, I had Chloe draft a public clarification. Nothing dramatic, just facts. Bullet points. Clean. Yes, I severed financial ties with my family. Yes, I did so after discovering they had repeatedly used and belittled me. No, I do not owe them a platform to rewrite the narrative. We posted it on my professional website, linked it through my company's press portal. It wasn't petty. It was clinical. The fallout wasn't. 2 days later, a blurry video surfaced on social media. Diane, standing outside the city's most exclusive boutique, screaming at a security guard who wouldn't let her in. Her voice cracked as she shouted, "Do you know who I am?" The comments were ruthless. Not anymore. Your membership expired, sweetie. Hope you kept the receipts. Then came the interviews. Not mine, of course. Margaret and Diane launched a full media tour, each appearance worse than the last. On live radio, Margaret called me ungrateful. She said I had let fame poison family. Diane cried, claimed I had always been emotionally distant. She even brought out an old photo of us smiling at some gala 10 years ago, as if it proved something. They were trying to weaponize nostalgia, but no one was buying it. Because while they were recycling old photos, I was providing current evidence. I posted a single screenshot from a text thread, time-stamped, dated the night of the rooftop birthday. Margaret, he actually thinks we love him, lol. Patrick, as long as he keeps paying, who cares? Diane, cheers to the cash cow. No caption. Didn't need one. The internet did the rest. That night, the hashtag cash cow Carter trended worldwide. Influencers dissected the texts on live streams. Reddit threads exploded. One person even wrote an op-ed in The Atlantic about emotional abuse masked as generational loyalty. Meanwhile, Margaret tried to pivot. She posted a filtered Instagram story of her meditating. Caption, healing from toxic energy. Someone replied, you were the toxic energy. Diane went quiet. I assumed she was dealing with the consequences offline. According to Chloe, several creditors had contacted my team trying to verify if I was still co-signing anything. I wasn't. The truth had finally caught up, and yet I knew they weren't done. Margaret doesn't know how to lose. Not quietly, not honorably. So I wasn't surprised when she showed up again, this time, not in my office, but on my building security feed, standing in the lobby, eyes wide, holding a gold-trimmed envelope like it was a peace offering. I let it sit at reception for a full day before I even looked at it. Inside was a single letter written in her favorite cursive ink. Nathan, you've made your point. But enough is enough. We are your family. This public humiliation is beneath you. Come home. Let's be reasonable, your mother. I almost laughed. The audacity of those 3 words. Come home. As if home had ever been where they were. As if they hadn't burnt every bridge and tried to sell the ashes for rent money. I crumpled the letter, dropped it in the bin, and turned off the light. Let them figure it out in the dark. It wasn't a fall. It was a slow, suffocating sink, like watching a ship go under, not in flames, but in silence. That's how their downfall felt, not sudden, not cinematic, just quiet inevitability. A week after the letter, I received a message from a distant cousin I barely remembered. Hey, just checking in. I heard things are kind of intense right now. Let me know if you want to talk. I didn't answer because by that point, things weren't intense. They were irreversible. The Carter penthouse had officially been listed. Margaret's attempt to hold on to it had failed after the 3rd missed mortgage payment. Diane's jewelry, the family pieces that were supposedly heirlooms, ended up on a second-hand auction site. Chloe found the listing when she was searching for comparable estate assets. Funny. She sent me the link with a note, $80 K necklace, currently bidding at $1,200. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. Their world had collapsed without a single raised voice from me. Just silence, boundaries, and the absence of my signature on a dotted line. But even then, they weren't done trying. One evening, just as I was leaving the office, my assistant stopped me in the hallway. Nathan, there's someone here to see you. I didn't ask who. I knew. I walked into the waiting area. There she was, Diane. Gone were the designer coats and manicured nails. She looked smaller. Her posture folded inward, her shoes scuffed, her purse overstuffed and cheap. Her face, normally tight with effort, was slack. Hollow. Hi, Nathan, she said, voice barely above a whisper. I said nothing. I didn't know where else to go, she continued. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. I don't need money, she added quickly. I thought you might want to talk. I raised an eyebrow. Diane fidgeted with her sleeves. Things are bad. Your mother. She's not well. She blames me. She blames you. She blames everything. But she paused, voice cracking. I just want to fix this. Fix what exactly? I asked. Not hostile, just neutral. I don't know. She looked down. Maybe the way we treated you. I repeated the word, let it echo. Diane swallowed hard. I mean, me. I should have said something. When I heard them laugh about you, I should have, I don't know, you laughed too, I said. She froze. You toasted to it. Called me your personal investor. I didn't mean, you meant every word, I said. That's the problem. The silence stretched. I don't hate you, Diane, I finally said. I just don't need you. That's worse, isn't it? Her eyes shimmered, but no tears fell. Nathan, I'm sorry. I watched her closely. No, you're sorry you lost, I said. Not sorry you played. She stood there, unmoving, like a statue waiting for someone to decide if it was art or debris. Tell Margaret she can stop sending letters, I added. I won't read them. I understand, she whispered. But I wasn't sure she did. I left her in the lobby, told the front desk not to let her back in. And just like that, another bridge turned to ash. Over the next few weeks, the stories multiplied, not from me, but from the public. Margaret was reportedly seen at a consignment shop, arguing about a return policy. Diane was spotted applying for a part-time retail position at a boutique she once refused to step into. My cousin Patrick, once dripping in name brand and arrogance, started tagging me in passive-aggressive job hunting posts on LinkedIn. I muted him. One day, I received a certified letter from my half-brother Thomas. I know things are messy, it read. But we're still family. We've all made mistakes. I think it's time to move on. Mom and Diane are struggling. We all are. If you have any decency left, I stopped reading there. The phrasing said everything. If you have any decency left. Not if you have love. Not if you miss us. Not even if you want peace. Just if you have anything they can use. I folded the letter and placed it in the paper shredder. Because if there was one thing I had learned through this process, it was this. People don't change when they're exposed. They change when they're alone. And most of them, they don't survive that silence. By the time winter came around, the Carter family name had faded from headlines. No new scandals, no appearances, no statements, just absence. It was almost poetic. All those years they spent trying to climb, clawing for recognition, status, influence. They laughed at people like me, called me naive, soft, convenient. And in the end, they were the ones begging for a seat at my table. But I had already built a new one, stronger, quieter. And this time, I sat alone, not because I had no one, but because I finally knew the difference between family and familiarity. There's a specific kind of silence that doesn't feel empty. It's full, final. Like the sound of a door closing for the last time, not in anger, but in completion. That's what life became after I cut them off. Quiet. And it was beautiful. No more voicemails filled with passive-aggressive guilt. No more holiday cards with fake cheer or forced invitations. No more reminders of the weight I carried just to earn scraps of validation from people who never once saw me for who I was. For the first time in my adult life, I woke up each day with no obligations tied to guilt. My mornings belonged to me. My energy wasn't rationed for emotional damage control. My money, all of it, was mine. It wasn't about the dollars. It never was. It was about choosing peace over performance. And in that peace, my world expanded. My company flourished. Chloe, ever the steady right hand, helped me restructure every asset, every division. We went international within 6 months. I didn't brag. I didn't post. I just worked quietly, efficiently. I hired better people, paid them what they were worth, created spaces where people didn't have to shrink to survive. People always talk about generational wealth, but they forget about generational damage and the work it takes to unmake it. My wealth wasn't just financial anymore. It was emotional, relational, spiritual. I had friends who didn't flinch when I went quiet for a week. I had a partner who didn't see me as a provider, but as a person. Someone who never once asked what I made, only what I dreamed of. We moved into a restored townhouse on a quiet street that no one in my family would have ever approved of. Too modest, too boring, not enough marble. But the walls held laughter. The kind you don't fake. I saw a photo once, Margaret and Diane, blurry, snapped by someone in a pharmacy parking lot. They looked average, not in a cruel way, just ordinary. Paper bags in hand, faded clothes, eyes lowered. There was no joy in it for me, no triumph, just distance. The same kind you feel when you finally step out of a toxic room and realize the air outside always had more oxygen. I stopped checking on them after that. Eventually, even the internet lost interest. The Carter name was no longer clickbait, no longer headline worthy. It faded like old ink on a damp envelope. Irrelevant. Years passed. Sometimes, people still asked, carefully, what happened with my family? Especially at fundraisers or conferences, I never gave them drama. Just a simple sentence, they taught me who not to become. And that was enough. I did hear one final thing, though. It came from Thomas. Not a letter this time, a voicemail. I hadn't blocked his number, just never picked up. He sounded tired. He said Margaret had moved to a small rental home in a city 3 states away, that Diane had started selling skincare online, that things had calmed down. Then he asked me something I didn't expect. Do you ever miss them? I played the message twice, and the answer came to me clearly, easily, like a breath. No. Because missing someone implies you had something real to begin with. And what I had wasn't family. It was obligation disguised as affection, manipulation masked as tradition. So no, I didn't miss them. I missed who I pretended they were, but not who they turned out to be. And in letting go of that illusion, I found a truth I never expected. Sometimes peace isn't about forgiving the people who hurt you. It's about forgetting the version of yourself that let them. Now, when I walk into my office, no one waits with demands. When I sit down to dinner, no one counts the price per plate. And when I look in the mirror, I don't see someone trying to be enough. I see someone who finally realized he always was, not because they said it, but because they never had to again. That's freedom, not fire, not fury, not revenge. Just silence, the kind that hums with dignity. And the door? It stayed closed, not because I locked it, but because I finally understood I never had to let them in.